The quantum drill's hum filled the bridge of the UES Hawking as Captain Elena Torres watched the asteroid field through the main viewport. This far from Earth, in the uncharted reaches of the Carina Arm, every extraction mission could mean the difference between profit and bankruptcy. More importantly, it could mean the difference between Earth's growing colonies having the rare elements they needed to survive or facing critical shortages. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," Lieutenant Sarah Chen called from the sensor station. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up a cascade of readings. "It's not electromagnetic, almost like vibrations through space itself." Elena straightened in her chair. After 15 years in deep space, she learned to trust her crew's instincts. "Source. That's the weird part." Sarah frowned at her displays. "It's coming from inside that large asteroid cluster ahead. But the pattern, it's too regular to be natural." Dr. James Martinez, the ship's xenogeologist, looked up from his own readings. "Those aren't asteroids, Captain. The crystalline structures are too uniform. I think they're buildings." Elena felt her breath catch. First contact scenarios were supposed to be handled by the Earth diplomatic corps, not mining vessels. But out here, protocols sometimes had to bend to reality. "Life signs. Difficult to tell with their composition," Sarah replied. "But the vibrations, I think they're communications, and they're getting weaker." The decision took Elena less than a heartbeat. "Take us in closer, carefully, and start recording everything. If there's someone out here asking for help, we listen." As the Hawking approached, the true scale of the discovery became clear. What they'd thought was an asteroid field was actually a sprawling city of crystalline structures, each one pulsing with fading internal light. The vibrations resolved into clear patterns, a language of resonances transmitted through the vacuum of space itself. Dr. Martinez's translation matrix began decoding the signals. "It's a distress call, Captain. They're calling themselves the Phyrexians. Their planet's core, it's undergoing some kind of phase change. The crystallization is spreading outward, threatening to shatter their entire world." "How long?" Elena demanded. "Weeks, maybe months at most. They've been broadcasting for help for over a standard year, but..." James hesitated. "But what?" "The galactic community responded by telling them it was natural selection in action. That species tied so closely to their planetary composition weren't meant to survive long term." Elena felt her jaw tighten. She'd seen this before. The older spacefaring races and their clinical detachment, their belief that they could judge which species deserved to survive. It was one of the reasons Earth had maintained its independence despite pressure to join the various galactic confederations. "How many Phyrexians are we talking about?" Preliminary scans suggest around 3 million in this complex alone, with similar structures detected across their world's surface. Conservative estimate, 15 to 20 million total. 20 million lives, abandoned by the galactic community because saving them would be difficult, because their biology didn't fit some arbitrary standard of evolutionary fitness. Elena opened a channel to Earth Command, knowing the quantum entanglement communicator would carry her message instantly despite the vast distance. "This is Captain Torres of the UES Hawking. We've encountered a civilization in crisis." She laid out the situation in precise detail, ending with words she knew would resonate with humanity's leadership. "They asked for help. Everyone else refused. What are we going to do about it?" The response took less than an hour. Earth's various governments had convened an emergency session, and their answer was unanimous. A mining vessel had neither the capacity nor the proper equipment for first contact situations, but they would stay and monitor while Earth launched the largest rescue fleet in human history. Elena sent Sarah to make first direct contact with the Phyrexian leadership. Their crystalline nature made traditional environmental suits unnecessary. They communicated through vibrations and drew energy from background radiation, rather than requiring an atmosphere. The lieutenant returned 6 hours later, her eyes wide with wonder. "They're ancient, Captain. Their civilization is older than our entire species, but they never developed space travel because they literally grew from their world's crystal matrix. They couldn't imagine existing anywhere else. Until now. And now their world is killing them. Elena finished. Did you explain our offer? Sarah nodded. They're grateful isn't a strong enough word, but they're also terrified. Their entire culture, their understanding of existence, is built around their connection to their world's crystal matrix. The idea of leaving. She trailed off. We'll find a way, Elena said firmly. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our resources. It's our ability to adapt, to help others adapt, to face the impossible, and find a way forward. She turned to her crew. We have 3 weeks until the first rescue ships arrive. That's 3 weeks to figure out how to safely transport crystalline beings across interstellar distances, to help them understand that survival doesn't mean losing their culture, and to prove that at least one species in this galaxy still believes in helping others. The crew of the Hawking set to work, knowing they were about to attempt something unprecedented in human history. But that was humanity's other great strength. Doing the unprecedented was practically their species' hobby. What no one knew then was that this crisis would do more than save a single species. It would fundamentally change humanity's place in the galaxy, challenge the established order of interstellar civilization, and prove that compassion could be the most revolutionary force in the universe. The emergency session of the United Earth Council stretched into its 4th hour as Admiral Marcus Chen studied the holographic projection of the Phyrexian homeworld. The crystalline planet sparkled like a massive geode, its surface dotted with the luminescent cities of its inhabitants. At the core, an ominous darkness spread like a cancer. The physics are undeniable, Dr. Amara Patel, Earth's leading xenogeologist, explained to the assembled representatives. The planet's core is undergoing a phase transition. When it completes, the resulting expansion will shatter the entire world. The Phyrexians evolved as part of their planet's crystalline matrix. They cannot survive that kind of structural failure. And the Galactic Concordat's response was to simply let them die. Ambassador Liu asked, her voice tight with barely contained anger. They claim intervention would be evolutionarily inappropriate. Marcus replied, reading from the official communication. According to their assessment, any species so fundamentally tied to their planet of origin lacks the adaptability necessary for long-term survival. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, most expressing variations of outrage. Marcus understood their reaction. Humanity had faced similar judgment when they first ventured into space. Too aggressive, too emotional, too unpredictable, according to the older species. It was why Earth had chosen independence over membership in the Concordat. President Sofia Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. We've heard the arguments against intervention. Now let's hear the plan for how we're going to do it anyway. Dr. Patel stepped forward again. The UES Hawking's preliminary scans have given us a basic understanding of Phyrexian biology. They're silicon-based crystalline entities that maintain coherence through a combination of electromagnetic fields and quantum entanglement. They draw energy directly from background radiation, particularly the specific frequency signature of their sun filtered through their planet's crystal matrix. The challenge, she continued, isn't just moving them. It's keeping them alive during transit and finding them a new home that can support their unique biology. We'll need to develop completely new technologies, and fast. The Concordat has threatened sanctions if we interfere, Ambassador Liu warned. They're calling it a violation of natural law. Natural law. Rodriguez's laugh was sharp. Humanity's entire history is about defying natural law. We weren't meant to fly, so we built wings. We weren't meant to survive in space, so we created our own environments. Nature said we couldn't live on Mars, so we terraformed it. Now nature says these people must die, and some advanced aliens agree. She shook her head. That's not a barrier, that's a challenge. Marcus felt a smile tugging at his lips. This was why he served, not just out of duty, but because humanity at its best refused to accept unnecessary tragedy. The logistics are staggering, he said. bringing up new projections. We'll need to retrofit our entire available fleet with specialized containment systems we haven't even designed yet. We'll need to find a suitable new home for the Phyrexians, develop ways to reproduce their native energy environment. He paused. And we'll need to do it all under threat of Concordat interference. Can we protect both our ships and the Phyrexians if the Concordat moves from threats to action? Someone asked. They're not the only ones with advanced technology, Dr. Paddle replied. We've been developing quantum field generators for our deep space mining operations. With modification, they could create protective bubbles around our ships, bubbles that would resonate at frequencies harmless to us, but disruptive to crystalline beings like the Phyrexians. The Concordat wouldn't dare attack if it risked destroying the very people they claim natural law demands must die. President Rodriguez stood, her decision clearly made. Humanity has always defined itself not by what we can do, but by what we choose to do. The Concordat chose to let millions die because saving them would be difficult and inconvenient. We choose differently. She turned to Marcus. Admiral, you have full authority to coordinate the rescue fleet. Dr. Patel, assemble whatever research teams you need. Unlimited resources. Ambassador Liu, prepare our response to the Concordat. Make it clear that humanity will not stand by while an entire civilization dies, regardless of their threats. The next hours were a blur of activity. Marcus coordinated with shipyards across the solar system, overseeing the rapid retrofit of every suitable vessel. Dr. Patel's team worked around the clock, developing and testing containment systems that could safely house crystalline beings during interstellar transit. The Hawking's crew continued their diplomatic work, helping the Phyrexians understand that survival didn't mean losing their cultural identity. But the Concordat wasn't idle. Reports came in of ships moving toward the Phyrexian system, officially to observe the situation. Marcus knew better. They couldn't allow Earth to succeed, because success would challenge the very foundations of their philosophy. If humanity proved that compassion and determination could overcome natural law, other species might start questioning the Concordat's authority. As he prepared to depart with the first wave of rescue ships, Marcus received a final message from President Rodriguez. Remember, Admiral, this isn't just about saving the Phyrexians. This is about showing the galaxy that there's another way. That advanced civilization doesn't mean abandoning our humanity. Marcus sent acknowledgement as his flagship, the UES Defiant, broke orbit. They had 3 weeks to save a species and perhaps change the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when compassion met determination. He smiled. Impossible odds against an implacable enemy while attempting something unprecedented in history. Just another day for humanity. Dr. Samira Hassan's fingers flew across the holographic interface as warning lights flashed throughout the UES Defiance engineering lab. The prototype quantum resonance chamber was failing, its carefully tuned fields collapsing as the test crystal inside began to fracture. No, she muttered, making rapid adjustments. Come on, hold together. The crystal stabilized, its internal light pulsing in a steady rhythm once more. Samira slumped in her chair, exhausted but relieved. Another failure now, with the rescue fleet just days from reaching the Phyrexian system, would have been catastrophic. That's the third containment field failure in 2 days, her assistant, Dr. Alex Chen, noted grimly. The Concordat's jamming signals are getting stronger. They're learning to disrupt our quantum matrices. They're not just learning, Samira replied, studying the data scrolling across her screens. These aren't random attacks. Someone's feeding them information about our systems. She opened a channel to the bridge. Admiral Chen, we have a problem. When Marcus arrived at the lab minutes later, Samira laid out her concerns. The quantum resonance chambers are essential. They're the only way we can safely transport the Phyrexians. But the Concordat's attacks are becoming precisely targeted. They know exactly which frequencies will destabilize our containment fields. A spy, Marcus frowned. But access to the technical specifications is limited to Earth personnel who've been thoroughly vetted. Alex finished. Which means either our security has been compromised, or someone high up believes the Concordat is right, Samira said quietly. That we shouldn't interfere with natural selection. Marcus studied the failed containment field data. Can you modify the chambers to resist the attacks? Samira hesitated. Maybe. But we'd need to completely reconfigure the quantum matrices. That means testing everything again. And we're almost out of time. What about using their attacks against them? Alex suggested suddenly. Both Samira and Marcus turned to look at him. The Concordat ships generate massive quantum fields to transmit their jamming signals. If we could tune our chambers to resonate at the exact inverse frequency, we could draw power from their attacks. Samira finished, already running calculations. Turn their interference into a reinforcing wave that actually strengthens our containment fields. She looked up at Marcus. It's theoretically possible, but we've never attempted anything like this at scale. One miscalculation, and we could lose an entire chamber of Phyrexians. How long to develop and test a prototype? 48 hours, minimum. But Admiral, even if it works, implementing the changes across the entire fleet. She trailed off, the impossibility of the task hanging in the air. Marcus straightened. You have 24 hours. I'll have every engineering team in the fleet standing by to implement your solution the moment it's ready. He managed a slight smile. Humanity's greatest achievements have always come when we had no choice but to succeed. The next day passed in a blur of calculations, simulations, and increasingly desperate attempts to perfect the new resonance technology. Samira's team worked without breaks, fueled by stimulants, and the knowledge that millions of lives depended on their success. The solution, when it finally came, emerged from an unexpected direction. We're thinking about this wrong, Samira announced, staring at the latest failed simulation. We're trying to protect the Phyrexians from the Concordat's attacks, but what if we let the Phyrexians protect themselves? She brought up the latest scans from the Hawking. Look at their natural structure. The Phyrexians evolved in a crystalline matrix that's constantly subjected to complex electromagnetic fields. Their entire biology is based on adapting to and channeling various forms of energy. Understanding dawned in Alex's eyes. Instead of trying to shield them, we teach them to absorb and redirect the attacks themselves. Samira finished. We don't need to modify our containment technology. We need to help the Phyrexians modify themselves. The next hours were spent in close communication with the Phyrexian scientists aboard the Hawking. To Samira's surprise, they grasped the concepts quickly, offering insights that helped refine the process. Their crystalline nature gave them an intuitive understanding of quantum resonance that humans had spent decades trying to develop mathematically. By the time the fleet approached the Phyrexian system, every ship was equipped with the new hybrid technology, human containment fields working in symphony with Phyrexian energy manipulation. The Concordat vessels moved to intercept, their jamming signals at full power. The first transport ship entered the interference field. Inside its hold, the quantum resonance chamber's fields wavered for a moment, then strengthened, glowing with absorbed energy. The Phyrexian passengers, far from being disrupted, began to shimmer with newfound power. Samira watched the readings with tears in her eyes. They did it. They're not just surviving the attacks. They're evolving, adapting in real time. Marcus's voice came over the comm, thick with emotion. The Concordat ships are pulling back. Apparently watching their weapons make their targets stronger wasn't part of their plan. He paused. Dr. Hassan, begin the evacuation. Let's show the galaxy what happens when human ingenuity meets Phyrexian resilience. The rescue operation was underway, and with it, perhaps the beginning of a fundamental shift in the galaxy's understanding of strength, adaptability, and the true meaning of evolution. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood in the crystalline chamber of the Phyrexian High Council, her environmental suit's sensors translating the subtle vibrations of their communication into words. The evacuation had been underway for 6 days, with millions of Phyrexians already safely aboard Earth's fleet. But now they faced an unexpected crisis. Many of our people refuse to leave the deep archive. Elder Ixtil resonated, their crystalline form pulsing with concern. They say our history, our very identity, will die with our world. Sarah understood their fear. The deep archive was a vast crystalline matrix extending kilometers into the planet's crust, containing the accumulated knowledge and experiences of Phyrexian civilization. Unlike human digital storage, the archive was a living thing, each crystal holding memories that could be directly experienced by those who interface with it. "We can't just let 10 million years of history die," she said, more to herself than the elder. Then an idea struck her. "Elder Ixtil, how exactly do your people interface with the archive?" The explanation that followed sparked a flurry of communication with the Defiance science team. Dr. Hassan's voice crackled with excitement over the comm. "It's possible. The same quantum resonance technology we're using to sustain the Phyrexians during transport. We could modify it to capture the archive's crystalline matrix structure. Not just the data," Sarah realized, "but the actual experiential format. We wouldn't be copying their history, we'd be transplanting it." The operation would require precision timing. As teams of human engineers and Phyrexian specialists worked to adapt the resonance chambers, Sarah spent hours in the archive with Elder Ixtil, learning more about their civilization. What she discovered changed her understanding not just of the Phyrexians, but of life itself. "Our earliest memories," Ixtil explained, interfacing with a particularly ancient crystal, "are of awakening within the living heart of our world. We were not separate beings then, but extensions of the planet's consciousness, slowly developing individual awareness." The elder's resonance took on a tone Sarah had learned to recognize as wonder. "Now we find that humans followed a similar path. You too emerged from the very elements of your world, gradually developing consciousness and independence. The main difference is that your bodies remained organic while ours became crystalline." Sarah watched in amazement as the archive crystal showed her images of early Phyrexian history, the gradual emergence of individual consciousness, the development of their vibration-based language, the first attempts to preserve their memories in crystalline forms. "We're not so different after all." "Indeed," Ixtil agreed, which makes the Concordats' position all the more puzzling. "They claim we are too rigid, too tied to our world of origin to survive. Yet they are the ones who refuse to adapt, who cling to their beliefs about what species deserve to exist." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Chen. "Lieutenant, we have a problem. The Concordat ships have begun moving into attack positions. Our intel suggests they're planning to strike before we can complete the evacuation." They know about the archive, Sarah realized. They're not just trying to stop us from saving the Phyrexians. They want to erase their history, their very identity. "Why?" Ixtil's crystalline form dimmed with confusion. What threat could our memories pose? Sarah thought about everything she'd learned in the archive. "Knowledge is power, Elder. Your history proves that consciousness, intelligence, and civilization can develop in ways the Concordat claims are impossible. You're living proof that their understanding of evolution and adaptation is flawed." The next hours were a race against time. As the human fleet moved to defensive positions, teams worked frantically to adapt the resonance chambers for the archive transfer. The Phyrexians, inspired by the humans' determination to preserve their history, began sharing their own insights into quantum manipulation, leading to breakthroughs that improved the process. When the Concordat ships launched their attack, they found themselves facing something unprecedented: human and Phyrexian technology working in perfect harmony. The defensive screens around the evacuation fleet pulsed with crystalline patterns, absorbing and redirecting energy attacks. Within the archive chambers, the transfer continued, each crystal matrix carefully preserved. But it was what happened next that truly changed everything. As the last segments of the archive were secured, the Phyrexian elders made an unexpected discovery. The quantum resonance technology hadn't just preserved their memories, it had enhanced their ability to share them. "We can show others now," Ixtil explained, vibrating with excitement. Not just our own people, but any species with the right interface technology. The truth of our history, the reality of our development. It can be experienced directly, not just described. Sarah understood the implications immediately. The Concordat's power was built on their claim to superior understanding of cosmic evolution. But now, humanity had helped preserve irrefutable proof that their theories were incomplete at best, deliberately misleading at worst. As the final evacuation ships prepared to depart, Sarah stood with Elder Ixtil in the last remaining chamber of the High Council. Through the crystalline walls, they could see the darkness spreading from the planet's core, the matrix that had sustained Phyrexian civilization for millions of years preparing for its final phase transition. Your people gave up everything to save us. Ixtil resonated softly. Not just our lives, but our identity, our history, our very essence. Sarah shook her head. We didn't give up anything. We gained understanding, knowledge, and most importantly, proof that the galaxy is more wonderful and diverse than anyone imagined. She smiled. Sometimes the best way to preserve your own humanity is to help others preserve their identity. The rescue fleet jumped to safety just as the first major quakes began, carrying with them not just the Phyrexian people, but the living memory of a civilization that refused to die. The Concordat had failed in their attempt to enforce their version of natural law, and in doing so, they had helped forge something new, a partnership that would change the course of galactic history. 1 year after the evacuation, Admiral Marcus Chen stood at the observation deck of the new Phyrexian settlement on Europa, watching the crystalline cities grow across the moon's icy surface. The Phyrexians had adapted to their new home with remarkable resilience, their bodies resonating with Jupiter's intense radiation field in ways their scientists were still discovering. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Samira Hassan joined him at the window. They're not just surviving here, they're thriving. The interaction between their crystalline structures and Europa's ice is creating entirely new forms of growth. Below them, the Phyrexian cities gleamed with internal light, their architecture a stunning fusion of their original crystalline forms and new patterns inspired by their ice-covered home. The deep archive, successfully transplanted and expanded, now formed the heart of their largest settlement. The Concordat's latest diplomatic note arrived this morning. Marcus said, still watching the city. They're formally withdrawing their opposition to the Phyrexian relocation. Apparently, our interference with natural selection has produced unexpected positive outcomes. Samira laughed. You mean they can't ignore the scientific breakthroughs anymore? The Phyrexian human research teams have revolutionized quantum physics, energy generation, and data storage in just 1 year. 3 other species have already broken away from Concordat restrictions to establish direct relations with Earth. It's more than that, a resonant voice added. Elder Ixtil emerged from a nearby crystalline chamber, their form shimmering with the enhanced vibrancy all Phyrexians had developed in their new environment. We have shown the galaxy that adaptation comes in many forms. Evolution is not just about survival. It is about growth, change, and the courage to become something new while maintaining one's essential nature. The Elder's words were proven true in ways none of them could have predicted. The successful integration of the Phyrexians into the Sol system had sparked a revolution in galactic thinking. Other species began questioning the Concordat's rigid definitions of evolutionary fitness and civilizational development. The quantum resonance technology, developed to save the Phyrexians, had applications far beyond its original purpose. Combined with Phyrexian crystalline engineering, it led to breakthroughs in interstellar communication, energy production, and even the beginnings of consciousness transfer technology. But perhaps the most profound change was in how species across the galaxy began to view humanity. The race that many had dismissed as too young, too emotional, and too unpredictable had demonstrated a fundamental truth. True civilization wasn't measured by age or technology, but by the willingness to help others, to innovate in the face of impossible odds, and to recognize the value of different forms of life. "We've received another request for access to the archive," Ixtil announced. "The Centaurians wish to experience our history directly. They say understanding how we survived our transformation may help them navigate their own evolutionary crisis." Marcus nodded. The archive had become more than just the memory of Vryxian civilization. It was now a testament to the power of cooperation between species. Human scientists had worked with Vryxian memory crafters to create interfaces that allowed other species to experience their history, leading to unprecedented levels of interspecies understanding. The Concordat was right about one thing, Samira mused. This did change the natural order of things, just not in the way they expected. She gestured toward the horizon, where a new construction project was taking shape. The first joint human-Vryxian Academy of Sinological Studies would soon rise there, dedicated to understanding and preserving the diversity of life in the galaxy. Already, scientists and scholars from dozens of species had applied to study there. "We didn't just save a species," Marcus agreed. "We helped create a new way of thinking about civilization itself." A group of young Vryxians passed by, their crystalline forms incorporating patterns that would have been impossible on their homeworld. They were followed by human students, wearing modified environmental suits that allowed them to directly experience Vryxian resonance communication. The two groups moved together with easy familiarity, a sight that would have been unimaginable just a year ago. "Perhaps that is humanity's true gift to the galaxy." Ixtil resonated softly. "Not your technology or your determination, though both are remarkable. Your greatest contribution is your ability to see beyond surface differences, to recognize that the universe's greatest strength is its diversity." As if to emphasize the elder's words, an alert sounded. Another distress call, this time from a species on the outer rim of known space. Without hesitation, Marcus opened a channel to Earth Command, knowing they would respond just as they had to the Vryxians' call. It was what humans did, after all. They helped, they adapted, they grew, and in doing so, they showed others how to do the same. The sun set on Europa, its light refracting through the crystalline cities in spectacular patterns. In the growing darkness, the combined lights of human settlements and Vryxian crystals created something entirely new, a visual symphony of cooperation, innovation, and hope. It was a beacon visible from high orbit, a signal to the galaxy that change was possible, that different species could not only coexist but thrive together, and that compassion could be the most powerful force for evolution in the universe. Humanity had done more than save a species. They had helped forge a new path forward for all species. And this was just the beginning.